The SABC has had no accounting authority since the expiry of the term of office of the previous board in October last year. This emerged before Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts. SABC CEO Madoda Mxakwe told the committee that he was not the accounting authority. The shareholder, which was represented by the Deputy Minister Mohlopi Mapulane, says he only discovered during the meeting that Mxakwe did not accept the delegated authority to be an accounting officer. Parliamentary Reporter Lulama Matya spoke to SCOPA chairperson.
Chairperson, for the second time in a row, the SCOPA meeting with the SABC executives does not get to discuss the business of the day. Take us through what is happening.
You will recall that there is no board at the SABC because the board expired in October 2022. The parliamentary processes by the Portfolio Committee, amongst others, require vetting to take place through the SSA. The State Security Agency delayed on that process and therefore delayed Parliament in finalizing the processes of interviews which Parliament must do in terms of the Act. Parliament subsequently approved the names in November 2022 and they were sent to the President. In the interim, in the absence of the board, the PFMA makes provision for the delegation of the Director General and or now an individual to assume the responsibilities of the board as the accounting authority on an interim temporary basis. When we met with the SABC in November, they had not done that, and therefore the meeting was not in a position to proceed as we discussed then. We rescheduled that meeting to give them space and time to get their house in order insofar as leadership is concerned, and the meeting was convened today. The delegation was effected on the 15th of February 2023, which gave the delegation or the designation as accounting authority to the CEO. The CEO then, it emerges now, is not happy or not in agreement with some of the content insofar as limitations to the implementation of financial commitments is concerned, and therefore is not accepting the delegation, taking us back to square one. But what is abundantly clear is that there is a total collapse of leadership and governance at the SABC and at the Department of Communication as the shareholder representative for failing completely to exercise correctly the coping mechanisms in place by the PFMA to allow them to continue with operations in the absence of the board. So in other words, whether there's a board or no board, whilst it is a matter of grave concern to us and one which must be resolved as a matter of urgency, at this point is neither here nor there, insofar as that the law doesn't allow for a vacuum. They have failed within the mechanisms in place to utilize those provisions of the law. That's point number one. Secondly, what is abundantly clear here is that there is miscommunication by the Department of Communication and the SABC. The Deputy Minister cannot find out here from the SABC and the CEO to say, well, actually there's a problem with the delegation which prompted us to agree that you come with us to go to the SCOPA meeting. And then when they get here, they drop this bombshell. It is reckless, it's irresponsible, it's a dereliction of duty and a waste of taxpayer money.
And who should be accountable for that? Because part of the meeting that was going to discuss the irregular expenditure of the SABC, the financial position of the SABC, which are not good. Well,
we have directed that they submit a report by Friday close of business, which will detail the chain of events insofar as how this dilemma has now arisen, with a view to be able to apportion blame, one, correctly, but secondly, pursue consequence management insofar as the financial commitments that the taxpayer has made, because ultimately responsible individuals must pay. The SIU was here. It's the second time that they've been here. The AG was here. The SABC in itself was here. We were here. Well, of course, we work here, right? But we are trying by all means to make use of virtual meetings where it's possible as part of cost-cutting measures. So ultimately, the wasteful expenditure sits squarely as far as we are concerned, unless they prove us otherwise, with the Department of Communications and the SABC. But beyond that, we need to go to the individuals concerned. For us, this is a microcosm which displays the extent of the challenges, because we have called them here precisely because there's challenges at the SABC. They are on a bailout which had very stringent terms and conditions, and in our view they've not adhered to those terms and conditions of the bailout, and further tranches are due to them in November. And the financial year is ending on the 31st of March without having afforded an opportunity for Parliament to interrogate the latest audit and annual reports which are before Parliament now. So we were going into an audit cycle in a vacuum insofar as parliamentary processes having been not concluded. All of this ultimately for us is an indication as to why the SABC is collapsing.